Crab Rave continues to wreak havoc in set 11, and I might be partly responsible since the only advice I gave so far was to field a bunch of 3-star legendaries. While the joke was totally worth it, this time for real, let's go over everything you can do in your power to beat the monster crab. But before we get started, did you know that working out with Set makes the subscriber button bigger? I love this encounter. Let's start off with a very small recap regarding the basics of Crab Rave. You will face off against the monster crab starting in stage 5-7 and every PvE round after. The monster crab has 20,000 HP, 300 armor and 300 magic resistance. Once the fight starts, all of your units will take damage every few seconds, which increases throughout the fight to the point that whatever is left of your team will eventually perish. Depending on which comp you play, your experience with this portal can be completely different. A strong heavenly reroll comp based around Kiana or Kayn usually doesn't have to worry about the crab at all, while other comps that are more based around AoE or don't have a lot of sustain items tend to have a pretty rough time. The most important aspects to beat the monster crab is high single target damage and lots of sustain from items or augments, but you have other tools you can utilize to increase your chances. Two of the more useful craftable items you should always consider in this portal are Sunfire and Redemption. Other burn effects like Red Buff or Morello are fine as well, but a frontliner with Sunfire is more likely to survive and maximize the effect. Burn effects against PvE mobs are sadly kept out at 100 true damage, so it doesn't matter if you have a Radiant version with an increased burn. Still, a single Sunfire should deal around 2000 true damage against the monster crab, making it one of the best items to include in your comp. Redemption is another item that is very useful in this matchup because positioning doesn't matter at all. Unless you're playing a sniper comp, you are better off clumping your entire team around a Redemption holder to maximize the effect. Both the heal and the reduced damage taken should help to keep your team alive just a little bit longer. Since we're already on the topic of clumping, this is where one of the special unit strategies comes into play. For this strategy, you want a strong way, preferably 2-star, with AP items like Archangel, and clump your entire team together. This will result in Wei continuously healing your entire team, helping to keep your carries alive, even if they don't have any sustain items. Normally, something like a Mythic Lilia setup will struggle a lot with beating the monster crab because you're both missing single target damage and sustain, but with the help of a strong Wei, it is possible to turn the tides and win the matchup. Another unit strategy worth mentioning is based around Amumu. He heals himself for a large amount while also healing adjacent allies for a smaller amount. Since the fight against the Crab Rave can be quite long, items like Archangel are absolutely amazing on Amumu to keep him around until the very end. A frontline combo of Amumu and Illaoi can easily tank the encounter for the entire duration. Unfortunately, you can't body block Amumu into the bottom right corner to help keep your carries alive because he doesn't use his ability unless he's next to his target. So to maximize the strategy, you would have to move your ranged carries into the second row. This becomes a bit awkward if you're playing snipers since you lose out on a lot of bonus damage, so you should only go for this tech if you're confident that the sniper units will survive longer in the second row. One unit that is probably worth mentioning is Set. Part of his ability scales with the enemy's max health, which can definitely add a few thousand extra damage if he gets more than one cast out. Since his damage is physical though, it will still get heavily reduced by the high defensive stats of the crab. I guess I could also mention Lissandra, but I think by now everyone should know that you can't cheese the matchup. In fact, there are some reports that you get less item anvils if you're playing Lissandra, so unless this bug was fixed, she might even be a unit worth avoiding altogether. Besides including specific units, you should also consider changing up your setup to include specific traits just for the upcoming PvE round. There are 3 traits specifically that can have a higher impact than running your usual setup. For starters, Ghostly is an amazing trait to deal with the monster crab. Since you're only up against a single unit, all specters will haunt the crab, granting your main carries a massive damage increase early into the fight. During the game, you can pick up several 1-star Ghostly units on your bench and replace your most useless units or traits. Especially frontline units tend to barely contribute anything towards the fight. Another trait that is useful to add is Dragon Lord. After 8 seconds, you deal a percentage of true damage to the crab, which is extremely valuable considering the high defensive stats and its enormous HP pool. Even 3 Dragon Lord will already add an additional 2000 true damage, and considering how close some fights are, this can be the difference between winning or losing. Besides Dragon Lord, you should also consider replacing weak units to include 2 Umbral, as long as you can guarantee that the Umbral units stay alive long enough. Umbral units will will execute units between 10 and 25% depending on how deep you went into the trait, and this will in fact work against the monster crab as well. Considering this is a fairly low commitment that can potentially result in several thousand true damage, it is worth considering aiming for an Umbral comp right from the start, or adding someone like Silas to deliver the final blow. While you can replicate most of the setups I've showcased so far, the next part will be a bit more difficult because it requires specific artifacts. There are a lot of artifacts, especially the new ones, that can help out tremendously, but unfortunately there is no guarantee to find a useful one. Nevertheless, here are some artifacts you want to look out for that will help you to win the fight. For starters, we have Deathfire Grasp. Not exactly a popular choice for most comps, but it does deal 20% of the enemy's max health as magic damage at the start of the fight. This works great in combination with Ionic Spark, since the damage will be heavily reduced due to the high magic resistance of the crab. Next up, we have Horizon Focus. It deals 30% of the enemy max health as magic damage every time the holder CCs a unit. Crowd control does in fact work against the crab, so you can place this on any unit with a lot of CC that is able to survive long enough into the fight, and your chances of winning should be a lot higher. Honestly, I could also imagine that the Teemo strategy with Blighting Jewel and Tattoo of Toxin would work quite well, as it shouldn't take him very long to get the crab towards 0 MR. This would result in all of your AP units effectively dealing true damage, and as a consequence, the fight should definitely be a lot easier. I sadly couldn't get the setup yet, and there is a pretty good chance this interaction will get removed in the future, so this might just remain a theory. Yeah, I don't think Riot thought that one through. Other artifacts like Death's Defiance, Forbidden Idol, Gold Collector, Talisman of Ascension, or Suspicious Trenchcoat will likely provide good assistance, and they should fit into most comps, so you should not be afraid to take an augment like Portable Forge, since you will likely get your hands on something useful. Finally, there is one more artifact I want to highlight that can be surprisingly powerful in the right hands: the Corrupt Vampiric Scepter. It is one of the most hated artifacts at the moment, but this doesn't mean that it's completely useless. In fact, this item is the core piece of beating Crab Rave with only a single unit. What you need is Aurelia with the Vampiric Scepter, 1 Ginzos, and 1 damage item like Giant Slayer or Infinity Edge. Aurelia will never stop weaving her blades in a circle, making her attacks extremely efficient and allowing her to fully outsustain the entire Crab Rave fight. She does need to be 2-star, since otherwise her base HP is too low and she ends up getting one-shot too early into the fight. In this setup, I did give her a little bit of support with a Yasuo and a Sunfire, but honestly, I think she is capable of winning the entire fight all by herself. This more or less covers everything I wanted to showcase. What are your favorite setups to defeat the monster crab? Let me know in the comments. I hope you learned something, and see you next time.